It has done nothing but rain and be grey for the last month or so here in England. So as I sat down at my desk and saw blue skies above me, I thought, why not paint that? So please, sit back and enjoy a full step-by-step tutorial of how I paint those fluffy white clouds. Let's get to work. Okay, so we've got Artrage open here, but you can use whatever art program you like. I'm going to be using mainly the oil paintbrush and the palette knife, as you can see on the left here, but if you don't have a palette knife brush on the art program you prefer, just use the smudge tool or just blend or whatever you use to blend your colours normally, but the principles remain the same whatever you use. So basically the overarching themes we want to look at and we really have to kind of concentrate on for each of our cloud paintings is the shapes we use, the time of day, the depth and perspective that we create, and the colours that we use. So first up, well, we're going to be doing our midday, bright blue sky, fluffy white cumulonimbus kind of clouds in a Studio Ghibli kind of esque setting. So what we want is, if you ask a child to draw a cloud, they would do something, I don't know, like that. Something even simpler, very Toy Story-esque. And it's fine for cartoony, but it's not realistic, and it's not what we want in our paintings. There's a bit too much symmetry, there's a bit too much uniformity, too many curves and not enough angles. What we want from our clouds is to be slightly irregular. So if we get a little kind of thumbnail up here, we want our clouds to be a little bit irregular in shape, some curvy bits, some sharp bits, and we want to overlay them a little bit. It creates interest, it creates depth, and it just makes for a more interesting scene. There we go, something like that. So rather than a very symmetrical, we've got an irregular shape with some sharper lines and some curves in there. Now, for this midday scene, it's going to be midday, so the sun is going to be high in the sky. So how will that affect what we're painting? So if you think about it, just looking at this little thumbnail, the sunlight is going to be coming in from either side, nice and high. So that's going to affect this shape and structure of how we see the clouds. We're going to see shadows on the bottom portion of these clouds. So if the sun's coming from this way, we're going to see it settling and it's going to get maybe a little bit darker at the bottom here. And just to kind of show you on the blue sky, just loosely, if we get a nice white cloud coming across, the bottom bit of that cloud will be more in shadow as the sunlight hits it from that direction. And as we've said earlier, you want to be overlapping your lines. You want some cloud bit formations to kind of come in front. Now that adds depth. And if you incorporate a little bit of darkness, like kind of going underneath these areas, again, that leads the viewer into the picture. And another little technique that you might want to kind of think of in your composition is if we've got our scene. It's a technique used in filmmaking as well, and it's called muddying the lens, whereby you might put foliage or something in the foreground just to kind of break up the scene, and it brings you into the kind of composition and into the scene. It makes you feel part of it, that it's not just flat. And we can do that with clouds as well. We can have some clouds being closer to us and some clouds being further away. And that just helps break up the kind of three-dimensional planes, that these in the background are further apart and maybe a little bit more wispy, and this one at the front, you know, if it's higher up in the sky, we might just see a bit more shadow going on one side, or lower, you'll see more shadow on the underneath as the sunlight hits it. And that just brings us to our focal point, which is bringing us into the center around here, maybe using the kind of rule of thirds. Something like that. We want to be bringing the viewer in. So if we were to add color to that at the top. Now remember, if it's midday, we're going to talk about colors now. Just quickly, we'll go over this really roughly. In midday, the sunlight, whereas the clouds would have a shadow on the bottom, it's the opposite for the blue sky. So the top of the blue sky would be slightly darker, and then getting lighter and transitioning through like that. And then the clouds would be not pure white yet, but we'll add a little bit of pure white for the highlights. And then they would be getting darker on the underside, away from the sun. So very roughly kind of showing you what I mean. You'll see more on the big painting that we're going to do now. So the things to bear in mind, as I said, let's just to recap, is your shape and form of your clouds. Try and avoid regularity, uniformity. Try and avoid them being too symmetrical and just standalone little fluffy clouds. Try and make them bigger, bolder, make the scene kind of grander and more irregular. Think of the time of day. So on this one, we're doing a midday painting. So the blue sky is going to go from dark to light going down the page, and the clouds are going to be the reverse of that. The light highlights are going to be on the top, and the shadows will be underneath. And think about your colors that you're going to use. So I wouldn't go pure white straight away. I would go maybe kind of an off yellow slightly, something like that. And then when you add the highlights onto it, it can be either a cold blue or a warm yellow. It really starts to kind of pick things out and creates little undulations again before getting into the blues of the shadows on the underside. And before you know, you've got something resembling some clouds. It's a bit of a mess, that one, but you see what I'm talking about. You'll see more on the full example. So shape, time of day, the depth, and the colors used will all help you to create a beautiful blue sunny scene, which we all need because it's been absolutely miserable weather here in Britain. I'm absolutely hating the rain, and it would be lovely to see this kind of sky. So I'm going to really enjoy painting this. So let's get to work on the main one. So I'm just going to use my oil brush and a nice chunky size one there, and we're going to start with our blue background. Now, I'm not going to be too precious about laying it on. At this stage, we can always refine things. I'm just going to get a basic shape of where I want to go, and I had a little warm up earlier on and kind of got a feel for the kind of shape I wanted. Some darker bits coming through here. And again, I'm working fast and loose. I'm not really too worried about things at the moment. Now, we said earlier on that it goes a little darker at the top. So we don't want it to be too much because it's a bright blue sky, but just a suggestion. And maybe within some of these areas here, we want it to be a little darker too, because again, we're creating that depth as we go. Nothing too major. Let's just lighten up a little bit across here. And what we can do on Artrage is we can bring up our palette knife, you'll see on the bottom left, and we can just smudge it about a little bit, just to kind of soften those edges. And see, it's kind of wearing the paint thin a little bit, but don't worry about that. We can fill that in a little while. And we need to go a little lighter at the bottom, don't we? And so again, we don't want to be too heavy-handed. Just go over the edges where you kind of feel the white clouds would be. And around here a little bit. And I'm working fast. I'm not being too accurate. Now, if you see on Artrage, just at the top here, if you get that little kind of where the paint's been rubbed almost too hard and it's gone thin on the canvas, just go bring a layer up behind it, and that will sort out any issues like that. So still staying on that top layer, we want to add our kind of start of the shape of the cloud. So I'll bring the brush size down a little bit, and again, not being too precious. I'm just trying to kind of eke in where I want some clouds to be, and I'm letting the paint kind of blur it, if you will, on the edge. You know, it's taking the shape of it. I'm not worried about that. I want it to feel loose and expressive. We can tidy up areas in a little while as we go. So we're going to come down here, bring it across in the middle, and I'm just doing little swirls and little shapes, and I want to create that depth to lead you in. So it's just a nice kind of creamy colour here for starters. We'll add some highlights and whatnot in a little while, and this muddying the frame that I spoke about, let's bring a cloud right up to the top. Really kind of big in there, like so. Go over any little bits that we know we want to be lighter. And, you know, work with the different sizes of your brush as you go. And fill it in. Okay. So now we're going to try and start creating a little bit of depth on these. So remember, the light is going to be coming across like we said, and so the left hand side of the clouds will be in the shadow, and the undersides of the clouds nearer us, you'll be able to see more of the underside. So again, we're bringing it round, and we're working fast. I'm just holding the stylus really loosely. I'm not too worried about detail or anything like that. I'm just trying to get the forms in first, and hopefully that can lead us, keep us in good stead as we go. A little bit around here, and you want to kind of soften these edges where it goes from dark to light. Just add a little bit more in there, and you'll see the paint kind of mushing together on Artrage is lovely, and it really kind of reacts like real paint and can start making for an interesting kind of look and feel to it all. So I want that side to be a bit more shadow coming up here, all across here. And although it looks, you know, a little bit messy at the moment, it will start kind of making sense as we add more to it. I'm just doing little rounded kind of brush strokes. And again, think about kind of if things are further away, they might get a little bit wispier as they go. I'm going to go darker again now. And I would like a little bit more. I want to, this foreground cloud on the left, I really want to make it pop. So I'm just going to add a little darker one, because it's this cloud now is going to be in the shadow of one of the clouds in front of it. So maybe this one that's leaning across over here will be casting its shadow on there. So you've just got to think about it as layers rather than a flat plane of clouds. Okay, I'm kind of getting somewhere now. Bring that one around a little bit more. And you'll see in a second that I'm going to use the palette knife again and kind of start linking it all together. So I want a little bit more, because I want this fluffy bit to be in front of some areas. And on this front cloud, it's a little bit flat, just that big expanse of cream and white so far. So I'm gonna bring a little bit of shadow into it. And I'm gonna define some of these shapes a little bit more as we go in a minute. So just soften those edges, think about it as kind of the rolls, almost like fields, you know, you've got the shadow coming across, kind of pillowy clouds, and that should be okay for now. And then we want to add a little bit of highlight to it all, a little bit of lighter now, and again I'm going to go in with a little bit more detail once we've used the palette knife. But whether you're using real mediums, real oils and real paints, or gouaches, digital, these kind of principles in the light and the shape are all the same really across it. Create interest by irregular shapes, and depth by shading and colour, and depth by the shape as well. Let's bring that one over a little bit more. And I want him to have a top of white, so Looks like a kind of bank coming across there. Want that to fade into here. And our nice big side bit here. Want a bit more light to be coming through on the underside of here. Okay, so we've worked quick and fast there. I'm going to bring up my palette knife, and it is just the left hand palette knife on Artrage there, which is just literally for blending. I'm going to shrink it down a little bit more. And again, just working as fast and quick. We can start smooshing it in and blending things together. And you want some of those kind of wispy edges, as if the wind's just caught a little bit of the cloud there. Bring it round. And then we'll define some of these edges a little bit more. So you don't want to over smudge it. But always bear in mind that these are kind of almost structures in the sky that they have form, even though they are, you know, just vapor and water vapor. They have form and shape and structure. Think of your angles, think of the direction of your brush strokes a little bit now more, where you're pushing things. You want to kind of make it start working as a 3D shape, if you will. I'm just going to make that a little bit more irregular on the side. It's just looking a little bit too pillowy, that one. Transition's a little bit smoother. Again, you can change as you go. You can push and pull, or if something's not quite working, it's not set in stone. Go back, revisit, tidy up a little bit. Already it's starting to kind of take shape, but it's a bit soft around the edges, and I really want it to be a little bit crisper by the end result. And you'll see how we achieve that in a second. Let me just get around here. Last little bit around the bottom. And then we'll start sharpening up a little bit. Okay. So it's already looking reasonably okay, but I think we can do more. And I think we can add a little bit of sharpness to areas now to define a little bit more where we want to be. So I've made my brush a little bit smaller, and I'm just going to start edging in some shapes with a bit more definition. Again, thinking where my shadows are going to be. Thinking how the interplay of light is hitting the canvas. Using like a kind of light minty kind of mid-tone, well, not even a mid-tone, it's still a highlight I suppose, isn't it? anything around here. And we'll blend them in a little bit then, but not quite as much on this pass. The warm-up one was probably a little bit better. I'll show you that in a minute. Kind of tried to follow the same shapes that I did a minute ago. And as ever, it's always the one that you don't record that looks pretty good. Okay, let's add a little bit of definition around here, so that's going. Again, thinking of regular shapes. To be really popping back through there. A little bit more zingy. Shadows on those top bits, which will again tidy up in a second. Nothing's symmetrical and everything's irregular. Getting something that resembles something half decent. I think this bit needs a little bit more definition. It's just gone into the cloud, into the sky colour a little bit too much. And I want a few edges on there. Too many new colours into it. Kind of stick to a rough palette, and you should be well on the way. A little bit of highlights across here. Again, trying to create these little pockets within the clouds. Kind of, you see the underside and the top all kind of working in unison. Okay, we'll have a little blend now. Sharpen up a little bit of this very white one over here. See if we've got things correct. Don't forget you can use the cloud colour, the sky colour, add a little bit of shape and definition if you so wish. Go a little bit more royal blue there at the bottom because it's really in the shadows there. Likewise on this side, we can really define the edges of these clouds a little bit more, I reckon. Not too major, but a little bit. Probably introduced a little bit of a crazy colour there. I didn't really want that. Okay, let's use our blend tool or our palette knife for one last time, just to soften these bits a smidge. These are meant to be fluffy, rolling kind of clouds, not hugely sharp and wispy, I suppose. You can get wispy edges. Now, on a lot of my work, my commission work, most of it's portraiture, but every now and then I get to do a cloud or a sky, and I love it. I love doing clouds. They're dead fun. You can be really experimenting. You can stick to the rules, or you can completely break them if you so wish. But I love them, and I love the way the paint works and the colours and the vibrancy. But if you find that it's a little bit too painterly and a little bit rough around the edges, or you're still struggling a little bit, just add a little bit of blur to it. If it's in the background and it's not the main focal point, and it's not trying to be a real painting, if you are just using it as an illustrator, and you're using it as an illustration tool in the background, just add a little bit of blur, Gaussian blur on there, and just knock it back slightly, and all of a sudden, those, your rougher paint marks become almost looking like a real sky. I'll show you in a second. So as I'm just chipping away at it there, I suppose it's a good a time as any just to remind you, if you could please like and subscribe this video, it would mean the world to me. Although I've been quite busy of late and been on dad duty, I am still trying to grow this channel. It's kind of growing exceptionally fast, exceptionally quick, and taken me a little bit by surprise. And I need a bit of, your input as well of what you'd like to see going forward, what you'd like to learn. Is there anything specifically you'd like me to show you? As the numbers grow, it will only help the channel more and more. So please do like and subscribe if you're a new viewer here. Welcome to the channel. If you're a returning viewer, thank you for sticking with me. I know it's been a little while since my last video, but they are going to come a little bit thicker and faster. So cheers, and if you're new, I look forward to seeing you on the next one too. All right, back to the video now. Come on, away with you. Okay, so hopefully you're getting the gist of where I'm coming from and how to build up a nice Studio Ghibli-esque blue sky with fluffy edges. And it's kind of come together okay. Quite happy with that. We don't need to add any other kind of yellows or blues, but just to kind of show you, if I was to, let's see, blur layer, here we go, and then all of a sudden you see, obviously you can take it to the nth degree, that's ridiculous, that's too far, but if you were to just put this in the background and you just wanted to smoothen off the edges and just give the suggestion of the clouds, and you've got your figure in front of it, it's always a nice way of just softening it if you so wish. But I quite like keeping it quite painterly, just to show you that I did do another version. Let's merge those down, and actually I quite like the second one better. The first one was good, but I think the second one works better. I could keep tinkering away on this all day long, but I think it hopefully it kind of shows you the gist of what I mean and how to create simple clouds and get the effect quite quickly and quite easily. Just be bold, throw the paint down, don't be too precious, keep it loose, and then use a little bit of smaller brushes to then kind of highlight areas, tighten it up in some, and I could go over this over and over again, and I might just to kind of keep getting it as close as I want to be to what's in my head, but hopefully it's giving you enough to have a go on it. Okay, so I really enjoyed painting this. It was a welcome kind of change of pace for me from drawing faces to do something a little bit more abstracty, a little bit more loose, and have fun with the paint and colours. Let me know in the comments below if you'd like to see more of these kind of videos. I'm thinking of doing more cloud-based, sky-based videos, maybe a sunset, maybe a smoggy one, maybe morning, or a Renaissance kind of ethereal light scene. So let me know in the comments below if you'd like to see anything, or if you need any more information, do drop me a line and I try and get back to as many comments as humanly possible. So again, thanks for watching. I really, did enjoy this process. It's not something I get to do all the time. It's usually just a bit part of my job. So being able to spend a little bit of time trying to get these fluffy kind of Studio Ghibli-esque cumulonimbus, let me know in the comments which it is, clouds right, and having a go at them was really good fun, and I hope you enjoyed it too. Give it a go yourself. Try and paint some fluffy white clouds. Just remember your shapes of the cloud, the time of day you're painting and where the light's coming from. Try and create that depth, and look at the colours you're using and try and keep them appropriate for the time of day. So really looking forward to seeing you on the next one, and I've got more planned and they're going to be coming out soon. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.